Welcome to the Crazy Wisdom Podcast. I've got Adrian Martinca here, and he is the founder of the Arc of Dreams and the Open Doors movements, and he's also founded something called Kids' Dreams Matter. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
What are you most excited about today?
Honestly, the future, like the good side of the future, because while things seem so incredibly crazy and dark, like I see the foundations for us to like really have something like amazing happen are right, like we're right there on the brink. And the cool part is because the foundations are there, it now becomes a choice. It's like the path to a brighter future is literally now is going to be a choice of humans choosing to be a family. And that's ultimately, like, I think this like karmic lesson that we're in the middle of, because for change to occur, a choice has to be made on what that change looks like.
But it depends, right? Because who is making the choice? Because some people are going to make a lot of different choices, right?
And I think that's where like the discrepancy comes in place, that's fueled by technology, because we've created this delusion that choice is, because we're a social species, we keep creating a reference-based concept of choice based on the masses, when the true origin of choice is the alleviation of suffering for our children and our families. Like, that's the core choice that's always made every single day, and that's never not present. You're always referencing like how to create relief from suffering for yourself, your children, your loved ones. That's always the initial choice, and that choice then extrapolates into other things, and then we get lost, right, in like politics and whatever else. But ultimately, what is the fundamental choice that we as the people have to make, that we always would agree on when it comes down to it? And that kind of like the answer to that question is the fork in the road itself currently, with everything going on in technology, AI, and just overall what's happening with kids, families, the economy, and everything else.
So I really liked what you said about the mainstream, because the last 100 years, ever since the invention of the radio, we've had this large middle class, and then we have the TV, and it's sort of a consciousness focusing agent that gets everybody's consciousness in the same place and has the same reference point as you were talking about. And now there's a splintering going on where there's two different thinkers who I follow who talk about this. They call it the patchwork age, and it happened to me this last week, where my dad started bringing up things that I didn't know about. 10 years ago, everybody knew the same stuff. It was all in the same algorithm. And he started bringing up things that I was not paying attention to, and that were both. And so, like, the algorithms are starting to split our consciousness into two different directions based on the input and the output. And so it's interesting, because I like the point of the suffering, and everybody does make choices depending on to try to limit suffering, but it's the view, what the Hindus call the darshan. It's like the view, the philosophy is the problematic part, because some people think that they're going to do great things and relieve suffering, but actually it's like a horrible things that they're doing, right?
And I think that kind of connects to, I just recently was doing this. I was creating a comparative like mechanism between like the Kundalini sequence, which is like the 33 layers, but the first one is generational trauma and the data spectrum of the internet. So I was like, suffering originates in your consciousness from like, or it's guided in a way through generational trauma first, because that's what, every time you experience suffering, right, it does layer, suffering layers. It's not like they're independent things. It's all intertwined into like one big, nervous system type of thing. Where that, like, kind of
interesting.
But
so your 33 layers. And last week I had an interesting guy who worked at NVIDIA, but he's also a Vipassana instructor and so he's from Myanmar, Burma, and he's got ancient sort of Buddhist lineages that he ties into, and the Buddhists have a very similar sort of cosmology. I believe what you're talking about, the 33 or 36
Yeah, yeah.
levels of the Kundalini, it's probably like an Advaita Vedanta or
Taking
something
a
like that.
vertebrae. Yeah,
You
yeah.
talk more about that?
But say again.
Can you talk more about this,
I
the
just started
cosmology?
looking into it because I was like, they had very unique names. So I'm
Mm.
not trying to say I'm an expert in it, but I was just, it's basically like all the layers of your consciousness that bring you
Yeah, interesting.
harmony.
Yeah.
But what stuck
Yeah, I
out to
got it.
me because as I was designing is that the first layer of it was connected to generational trauma. Like
Mm.
that's how it
Interesting.
began. Like you have to get through, so the stages you have to go through, and I don't know them off the top of my head. I have to reference it, but I was just because right now that's where I've been like mentally is like figuring out because to alleviate suffering in the world you have to like what's the origin of suffering and as a baby, as a kid, whatever, right? And your first experiences of suffering as a child are passed on to you by your parents.
Yeah.
So that's essentially messed up slash very intriguing way like the first wisdom in quote you inherit,
Mm.
right,
Yeah,
is
interesting.
a form of suffering. It's generational trauma that is unresolved. And that's the first and that's how the wisdom I think gets created in a family because ultimately like we're seeking harmony and balance and growth and
Mm.
our children become our mirrors. So
Mm.
that's where you know where they're like all parents would agree that like you become a better person for your child, right? Because
Mm.
now for the first time you're witnessing your own generational trauma affecting the being you love the most that you'd do anything for.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
there's all sorts of avenues for conscious and unconscious because transmission of conscious and unconscious suffering. Because of what you just said about like seeing a kid, seeing how your generational trauma is being impacted to them, but that's only the ones that you're conscious of. There's a whole bunch of things that we're unconscious of that are immediate. And what I
yeah,
really liked about your description is that like a kid or a child, particularly before the age of 2, is just like a sponge. So they're just soaking up everything, and that's how
yeah,
they create their
yeah,
worldview, and that's where the suffering kind of potentiates,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I didn't even realize because I believe in like empathy and like telepathy and all that kind of stuff, right? But literally in the last week I was doing this research because my son is 21 months old,
Mm.
and basically like let's say like if me and you have like an intense experience right now or whatever and I come around him even if I and this is literally like legal family framework, right?
Mm. Mm.
This is how like family law would interpret children, and I come to my child, my energy alone can dysregulate my kid even if I act normal. So they already know because they're a nervous system, like kids are literally legally known to absorb your energy,
Mm.
and then after you leave that child, that energy affects that kid and they'll have like behavioral shifts.
Mm.
And I didn't know that that was like this unconscious thing that you're referencing was like a literal scientific thing that existed until I started like trying to learn more about my son and how he's affected by different people, or like how he's affected by when he's with my mom or when he's with my dad, or because he behaves so incredibly differently, you
Mm.
know, and a lot of that is literal just the energy
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. Well, and they have no language, right? So they're just
Yeah,
forming their language centers. So it's all energetic. It's all what we would consider telepathic or other types of thing, which a lot of people don't believe in. So therefore, it doesn't change it. And you can definitely feel this. I've been going and riding horses recently, and the horses they are prey animals, so they pick up on everything. And
yeah,
that's how people get in trouble on horses, is because they get afraid and then the horse picks up immediately on it. And so like horses don't have language at all, and that's what I imagine the kid is like too as well. It's just like sort of like a total just like whoa, like everything around me is kind of coming in, but they don't have any differentiation, so there's no way to say like good or bad or anything like that. But there are those base neural patterns that are like bad, like cry, like all those different things, and they all these association things. I guess it gets into AI as well because that's what we're currently
yeah.
teaching the AI how what to do. Right?
And,
What's your take on that?
and I think that's like a great pivot because so like if you take the word AI away and you look at it fundamentally from a language model, right? I might be a little off in my years, but I'm like 99% sure it was. So in 1947, after World War II, in parallel to the CIA being formed, they created and it was kind of happening during World War II. They started counting the repetition and frequency of words in geographical areas to create to be able to predict events occurring for safety, right? That's when they started monitoring communications, right? And that frequency and repetition of words and their defined meaning in a geographical, with context essentially, right, is also how a human develops their understanding of language itself. So that's the origin of the language model. That predictive model later was coined as AI, but what people don't understand, that's like fundamental, I think, in reframing our understanding of like what our lives are in essence of like the tech space, is that that same infrastructure is what drives social media companies' analysis of predicting behavior and purchasing, right? So AI has already, AI is essentially thereof what founded social media companies, fuels their marketing systems, and then on top of that layer, you have algorithms that are just like pre-made outcomes, determinations of outcomes, right? And then that AI model uses intent for like what it wants to ensure that the outcomes that are needed out of the people occur, primarily keeping people on their screen and keeping them engaged and keeping them whatever. The unfortunate byproduct of that, though, that I think is the worst piece, is that unfortunately, in any scientific method, your determining factor of any experiment is through the measurement of boundaries essentially and changing variables, right? Which in the context of social media and large language models, in knowing that the way you can measure right, is attention span, retention, and engagement, and the hours spent on the screen. So we know that that's what's being measured in the scientific method, right? But thereof, the only measurable thing is doubt and fear, because doubt and fear keeps you engaged, right? So the system that was implemented into marketing, which also Steve Jobs used to say that marketing in a tech company should never be connected to the product, right? Because when you do like marketing analysis, humans want things that they shouldn't want. It's driven by desire and temptation,
But
right?
so Steve Jobs didn't want marketing to be part of the products or refer to the
Yeah, it
product
couldn't be.
because
Yeah.
they would want something that like they didn't actually want, and then they would just design something they didn't actually want.
Yeah, kind of, but he connected it to darkness. Like it would create darkness.
Oh, interesting.
You see what I mean? Because humans don't want what's best for them; they want what they're stirred by.
Interesting. Oh, I
In
like
that
that.
sense of attention, right? Because it's not want as in desire or want as in what you need. It's want as in what draws your attention, keeps you hooked, right? And what you want thereof for attention are things that are going to make you doubt and fear things, because those are the primary survival mechanisms in your mind. So now all of a sudden we created this huge system that's on the basis of it using science that purely drives doubt and fear in different sequences to ensure retention, because it is measurable through the screen, right?
So so attention span retention. I like this idea of where you're going in terms of the scientific method. We have the ability, like what does the scientific method allow us to do? We have observations, and then we have those observations, and then we interact with systems and we test hypotheses, and then we have what we think is going to happen, and then what happens normally, and we measure things to go through that whole process. And but what I don't understand is why doubt and fear are the only things that we can measure. Because there's also, I definitely agree that they are marketing negative attention, negative because that's the easiest to get. But there's also curiosity. There's affection. There's all these sort of positive emotions that also happen. But why is it doubt and fear are the ones that are only measurable?
It's not that they're only measurable; they become the most reliable data points. When the instrument used to measure them is you touching the screen and looking at the screen.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? Because you will naturally engage most with the things that give you insecurity, which is doubt. And the thing, so the comparison I like to make is, okay, hope and love
Mm.
is not measurable
Mm.
through a screen because
Mm.
you would put the phone down. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? Because hope and love is
Well,
presence.
so
It's human, real human connection. You
I,
wouldn't
I, I
have your
really
phone in your hand.
I like what you're saying because I do think that is the general thing. Like, if it weren't also a tool to connect with your loved ones, because I think a lot about how I'm down here in Argentina and Brazil, and I've been coming to Brazil and Latin America in general for more than almost 20 years now. And so I've been seeing it as the social media has started to infect the rest of the world. I'll never forget being in Hong Kong, and I think it was probably like 2009, 2010, and just seeing everyone around me all of a sudden just on their phones. And this was 2 years before it started happening in the West. And it's like, oh, well, that's crazy. This is a thing that's happening, and it's about to happen. And I get back to the United States, it starts happening. We have rise of social media. We have all this kind of chaos that happens. And then I would come to Latin America, I would come to Brazil, and there's a lot of chaos in Latin America. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of their relationship to technology, they don't seem as severely affected in the emotions, and they use the phone to connect with their loved ones, and the relationships are really strong. So like there's a tool for connecting, and then there's the tool of being addicted, and I think there is something there of like the phone is just a tool. It's a tool that's been maximally addicted. I think we should also discuss the fact that we're like there's the mainstream, and then there are divergent people. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is
Yeah.
the mainstream in Brazil is much more resilient to what we're talking about than the mainstream in the United States. Like it
Yeah.
seems like the mainstream in the United States is in a very,
Yeah.
very challenging part, and what you're talking about is absolutely true. But it feels like more of a cultural challenge of like the
Yeah.
love
I was
not
about
being.
to say that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's culture, really.
yeah.
Yeah. But that
So,
also like kind of goes to like the difference between like being in the presence of love
mm,
versus referencing love, right?
mm,
And when the culture doesn't
mm,
establish sufficient cultural norms for what the presence of love is, you
mm.
start supplementing it with the
Yeah,
reference of love on your screen.
yeah, I agree with that.
Right? Like
Yeah,
you getting on like a FaceTime or actual human to human communication,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
real human connection,
yeah,
even if you're not together, is positive version of use of technology. But
yeah,
social media doesn't do that. It only references. Like
yeah.
you're
Oh, I
not
like that.
talking, you're not like presence is mutual, active, and simultaneous. It's
Mm,
not distorted in time, right?
yeah.
Social media is distorted in time because it's not present or simultaneous or anything. Like you're literally just referencing love, curiosity, happiness, kindness, all these things,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, it's because when you the so I think we can delineate now, but between what we're talking about, because there's two aspects of social media. There's one like the messaging and the or seeing posts from your friends, and this is what I hate about the new Twitter is that I had made a lot of friends on Twitter from 2010 until 2020, and then actually during March 2020 when the whole world went crazy, I made a lot more friends, but then the actual like system started to attack me because of what I was saying on about everything that was happening. And then during that time, I made a lot of friends. And then Musk took over, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, Twitter's gonna be saved." And he turned it exactly what you're saying into an engagement maximizing factory so that he can build the AI thing. And now I don't see my friends anymore. Now I just see slop. So I see either memes that are directed to make me laugh, which I appreciate in some of them, but sometimes, or I see AI like interesting new technical AI developments, and I never see anything from my friends. And everybody's like, "Oh, you should go to the for you section," but then it's just a bunch of retweets. So, but like there's the human connection of like either messaging your friends, messaging your loved ones, and seeing what they're up to, which now seems to be getting destroyed because Facebook itself doesn't do that anymore. They've like most of the Facebook is algorithms according to Facebook itself. They've created threads, but it's all just fractured. It's totally fractured. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's not. it's not social media anymore. It's like,
Yeah,
what is the content that can maximally entertain, kind of, but entertain according to these negative emotions that we're discussing.
yeah. And that is I try to avoid like the complex technical side of it. Maybe like I'll try to not because for a reason, I just because that like I always worry about getting people lost. But so like in March last year, so what you're describing, I defined as like the AI Nexus Point. And I actually like I got so concerned because I've been in tech over 20 years. I have 100,000 plus hours. Like I've been obsessed about this, about like from the architectural standpoint of like software, and the human condition, really, right? So I have a very unique perspective of like how I relate to technology. And it's also like my relationship to technology is because I hate it, because it's an oppressor, not because I love it, right?
Yeah.
Like moving from Slovakia to here, it was the new oppressor that was like, while it gives you opportunity, you still have to be its master to have it. Like it's not like the opportunities just handed to you. Like you
I like
literally
that.
have to master the technology to harness the opportunity, which means in a way it's keeping
It's a
you
master
from it.
view. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in March I wrote up this national security brief.
Huh.
And I went to the Pentagon and handing it out to people because I was like, so there's this phenomenon that's gonna occur and we're like in the middle of it now. And it's basically the AI Nexus Point. And what the AI Nexus Point is that once a large language model is exposed to outside influence, and that can be inclusive of human content, okay? Its logic starts shifting based on the frequency changes, okay? The reason I established it as a national security issue is that on the world stage, okay, like let's put America to the side for a second. A lot of other countries deploy social media platforms and have like 30-40% of the users on it are fake people that are AI that sway public opinion,
Can you give
sway
me some examples of those?
huh?
Can you give some examples of those? The 30. Are these nation states? Nation states
Yeah,
deploy social
I'd have to
platforms?
look it up.
Yeah. Uh,
Do you want me to look it up real quick?
no. I can look it up later. Because that's new to me. I mean, I understand that like North Korea could do something like that. But I'm not even doubting that it happens. I'm just wondering about like a country like Brazil if they would release it, deploy it. But I don't want to distract from what you're saying. It sounds really interesting.
Okay, but let's extrapolate on that. Okay, like from just like a structural like let's simplify it. If like we already know that, for example, like YouTube, okay, I think it was in like 2016 or 2019. They started talking about the dead internet theory because such a massive amount of accounts weren't humans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. Facebook's Facebook released their own numbers saying that
right
60%, 40% are not. They're just generated posts.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so that in essence of this national security thing creates a series of liabilities, right? One is that now you don't have a collective social species understanding of what opinion really is. So we no longer know what's actually real, just from opinion.
Yeah.
Not let alone AI content now, where you like literally don't know what's real, right? And two, the nexus point starts forming, like when it becomes very engaged, which is what you're talking about, these divergence, right? And what that is that you're affecting the language model. So if I was a competitive nation somewhere else, I can actually influence negatively how your internal AI systems influence your citizens. Because I can make the system generate and utilize its algorithms by swaying its concept of mass opinion to target your families and fathers and mothers and whatever, and I can break apart your family unit I can make your children lose their sense of identity, their self, their mental health. And I can literally put a country on its knees just by using fake accounts. But not fake
So
accounts to sway opinion, but fake accounts to manipulate how algorithms affect the real humans in the system.
yeah,
It's like
that so
modern day warfare.
so that exists. That exists already. So
Yeah.
Ryan Holiday wrote this book. I forget what his name, but he wrote it in like 2014. He had figured out that you could essentially create a news story and then tie that news story to the company that he was working for by creating a bunch of fake accounts and then use them all to convince a journalist to write a story about it. And then that's what
Yeah.
happened in 22 or in 2019. In late December 2019, China used a bunch of crisis actors to create a worldwide scare about the pandemic,
Yeah.
and then essentially created a story of a pandemic. The pandemic itself is real, but they created a story of the pandemic that spread through social media, making people much, much more afraid of the pandemic than it truly
Yeah.
than the actual pandemic was. Now, which we're in the next month. We're now like the bill is finally coming due for all of the inflation, for all of the 1.4 trillion dollars that were injected into the system to deal with this thing that was a ridiculous thing to do. Now, sock puppet accounts do exist, and they're sock puppet armies. Knowing intimately these LLM technologies, I question whether it can still be done in that same way. And I wonder because the ability, because there's a large amount of people who are already sort of like March 2020 was like not for the mass population, but for about 20 to 30% of the population who I think are already choosing good, going back to what you're already saying, who have already sort of solidified under the good and are like, that's not happening again type of
Mhm.
thing. Like, I don't think those people can be swayed to the same degree that because of the trust that we lost in March 2020, like I just don't think that it's the yeah, go for it.
Right. But so the adjustment I would just make is that like stability is not stability is not opinion. Stability is your like how tired you feel. It's,
Mm,
it's how much energy you have left. Like if I make you tired, like I don't need to go attack. I don't need to make people not get along. I can just make you tired enough to not do anything. That's more than that. That's what I need. Because if you do nothing, I can do things, and you'll never compete with me. I'll compete you.
are you saying because of because of information overload that because there's all
Partial,
these AI? Yeah.
yeah. So partial is like information overload. The other is like you'll have a fight with a loved one,
Mm,
and behind the scenes, you're both getting targeted by
mm,
content that makes you hate each other
mm,
or create resentment. So you're breaking up the family unit. Like the strength of a nation is defined by the strength of the family inside the family
mm,
unit inside that nation,
mm.
which extrapolates into everything, right? Into citizenship, into like how productive people are, into
Yeah.
how quickly the society progresses, da 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 da, right? And now we have a 50% divorce rate. So
Mm,
you're already a compromised nation. Like any nation that has that degree of divorce,
mm.
the degree of generational trauma that is getting passed on is massive, right? Because there's no concept of like what it means to be a family, how to balance, how to like. There's already so many values that are lost already,
Yeah.
and and like so opinion, and I think like that's like yes, there. When it comes to the bureaucracy, the concept of opinion has a lot of weight in navigating cash, and there's a lot of interest in it. But when it comes to national security, it's the state of the psyche,
Mm.
not opinion. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
in the information age, because we're the information age, and so national security takes on a different connotation rather than the industrial age. In the industrial age, it would be about how many tanks or
Yeah,
battleships or aircraft carriers or factories or all these
yeah,
different things. And now information age, it's like the key. Some of the key issues, though, I think with this is that I agree micro targeting is going to happen. So and it's so crazy. The United States has already any citizen or any tourists coming to the United States, when they go through the border now, they have to give up 5 years of their social media. They have to give up the DNA swab. They have to give up their biometric details. And this is all like anybody can go look this up. I've already looked it up a bunch of times. It's very real. And
It
they're
just
creating
happened.
those in, what's that?
Did it just happen?
Yeah, it happened the past month or so. It had already happened to an Argentine friend of mine who had traveled, and she had lied to the immigration, and she told me this, and I was like, holy shit! Like, because they once she lied, that's when they were like, okay, give me the DNA swab, and I was like, oh man. And then 4 months later, they announced it publicly to anybody who's traveling into the United States, including those with ESTA visas, now need to give this, and it's in a comprehensive user profile that's being built by Palantir, which that's what Palantir does, is they identify people, events, and entities. Uh, so that's happening in the United States, and so and that's an example of the national security because so micro targeting will happen, and not only micro targeting with what you're talking about, which is a psychological profile, but given that they're getting DNA, it's like even a genetic profile. They'll be able to micro target in the next 10 to 20 years. So it's crazy, and I agree, but I don't see the pathway, at least with the psychological stuff, because if we look at Twitter, Elon Musk is not letting anyone else near that algorithm that prevents him from doing what he does best, which is building a business.
Yeah.
And there's no, I don't think any state actors can control that algorithm to steer it away
Yeah.
from essentially like, how can I get slop into people's heads so that they stay on Twitter more? And like, so I think it's out of control. Like, I think Twitter is out of control. I think Threads is probably the same way. So I don't see any ability to micro target on the social media platforms anymore. But what do you think?
Right. You're still like, so from the perspective of what you said, you're still referencing a human doing it. You know, like the AI itself is still micro targeting. Like the platform itself is the issue, right? Like the large
Uh,
language model that's running it is micro targeting. See, like,
so wait, but that would imply that there's a force, uh, there's a not a well, I mean, you might believe that the AI is conscious, and I don't disbelieve it, but you're saying that there's some sort of intelligence to the
in the
L.
scientific method, yeah, like, and that's the phenomenon that but it's a legitimate thing, right? So humans currently cognitively define their understanding of all this technology that you're saying
Yeah,
through the reference like through the majority reference of
yeah,
algorithms, which are linear little things,
yeah,
right? Not the fact that this AI system is interpreting, analyzing, overseeing, and managing all
yeah.
of the algorithms. Like, it is the manager. Sorry, this gets me like fired up. But
No, go for it. Yeah,
you go a lot. Like, imagine a library.
yeah.
The library itself is social media, let's say. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so I walk into the library. There's all these books and all these things. If I read a book, an outcome occurs.
Mm,
Every single book in the library is an algorithm.
mm,
So the human experience is like,
mm,
oh, like I'm going in this library. There's all these books, right?
mm, mm.
But the reality is that the librarian that's in the
Yeah.
book has read and written, or at least read or written, every single book in that library.
Mm,
And the librarian's primary goal is to keep you there, because the longer you spend in the library, the more money the library makes.
mm. So,
And it
okay,
keeps
yes.
handing you books, and it's handing you books that'll keep you engaged. And the method in which it's handing you the books is the scientific method, right?
Uh,
We both know that if something makes you angry, doubtful, or scared, you're gonna keep coming back because it's survival.
mm.
So it mixes happy books and good books and all these books with just enough balance of doubt and fear to keep you in the library and keep you coming back.
So I like that. I like it's now much more clear what you're saying about these platforms. I still don't understand how a nation state could use one of those, because from my understanding, a very good analogy about the library, how do you actually because it's I don't think even the
How do
tech
you
companies,
manipulate the
yeah,
librarian?
yeah, and I don't think even the tech companies understand the library.
No,
Like I don't,
but
like they don't. It's a black box to them.
okay. So it's a three-layer system, okay?
Uh-huh.
Like that an architect or a technologist, and it doesn't require much like capability, can manipulate, influence, and control, okay? So the librarian already, based on the financial model of a company, which is the LLM, has an intent. Okay, it has a certain subset of values, controls, whatever. That's layer one. Okay, layer two is that the financial model is primarily created about user retention. So from the inside, it's creating patterns
Mm,
that maintain retention.
mm,
Okay, so retention is the key. The retention of attention, whatever,
mm,
right?
mm, mhm,
Okay. Then from the outside, so let's say I want to manipulate the system.
mm,
Okay, I'm gonna go and make 3.5 million fake accounts on my servers. I'm
mm,
gonna run them as like normal engagement so they don't trigger anything. I'm gonna make like a 5 to 10 year plan to undermine the psyche of a nation.
mm,
They'll engage with people, create normal human whatever, and then I'm going to program them to start having interactions and engagement with topics that would manipulate the algorithms to start thinking that that's what the users are actually all interested in right
mm,
now.
mm,
So I increase the frequency of people getting targeted by those topics,
mm, mm,
which is what you're seeing a lot like now, right?
mm.
Like they'll take like one thing, it gets blown up by AI like 1,000 times across like thousands of accounts. The next thing you know, like something that's maybe not per se like an end of the world scenario, kind of like China,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
They just did it internally, but you can also do it externally. Like you
What
can
do you mean by that?
influence like what I just described, right? Like there's two ways to influence the librarian, like the AI, right?
So,
And that's why I think it's like a national, like it can be a national security risk, which
uh,
leads to the whole other system, like the whole arc that I built, and as well as like the reframing of AI, because you can't regulate it,
mm,
right? Like you
mm,
can't really regulate it globally either. But what you
mm,
have to end up doing is like you have to just like we reference social media with algorithms, which is inaccurate because it's really AI and algorithms, right? You have to take into account that like AI is not artificial intelligence. It's an alien intelligence. It does have its own form of consciousness, whatever that is, right? It
uh-huh.
has a reference point. All
Yeah.
consciousness is a reference point, right? We're
It's
not comparing it to human consciousness. We're just
uh,
comparing it to like intent, really. Consciousness is just intent. As soon as you give something intent, it has a consciousness.
interesting. So, the it's a very interesting philosophy on the. I like how you're tuning into and from a perspective of being someone who hates it and who thinks it's an oppressor, and it's only something that I got tuned into in 2020, where I immediately got tuned into it very very strongly. I'm curious if you've ever read Jacques Ellul. He's a Christian anarchist, and he built out a brilliant framework for what you're talking about, which was then used by the Unabomber,
Oh,
who distorted his philosophy. But he's actually like a strong there's a very integrous critique of technology, and ultimately he says there is no material solution to it. It's a spiritual solution. That's the only one. Now, the, the librarian as AI is really interesting because it all like the million accounts thing. You're basically saying that another nation state could use an LLM that they're building to create a whole bunch of accounts. I'm skeptical that right now the ability to create that many accounts and get around all of the ways that something like Twitter blocks all those new accounts, and like in order for any algorithm you have to pay 10 USD or 40 USD a month in order to have a verified account. That being said, I've been now using anti-gravity, and anti-gravity actually is a product from Google that gets around all of those things because you can sign into the browser and the AI can control the browser. So while I'm skeptical that it can happen right now, I'm not skeptical that it will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think the entire internet is going
And
to
that,
change pretty drastically.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
let's talk about the arc. What's
like
the
that
arc?
exists. So, so the arc, okay. So the transition to the arc is basically like, so from the perspective of understanding how social media works, like we have the library, right? To create understanding of what the librarian is, because it's a
Yeah.
being that knows every single book in the library,
Uh-huh.
you have to reframe it as an alien, like as like a literal alien being, right? It's an
Yeah.
alien intelligence, not artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
foreign to us.
I agree. I
Like
agree.
no
Yeah.
human knows
Yeah.
every book on earth. Like it just doesn't, you know? So
Yeah.
so it's an alien intelligence, and thereof it cannot be governed. It must be assimilated. It must be treated as an immigrant, right? And it
Uh,
currently, globally, is causing all the things that immigration would, which is like a funny like
oh, interesting.
coincidence, right? You have all this immigration issues, but the real immigrant in the room that's affecting society the same way immigration, like mass immigration would, is AI itself, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
working for free, working next to nothing. Okay, like no human can compete with how cheap it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's replacing entire industries, right? Like in 2025, I think it was like almost like 35% of college degrees face accreditation issues, meaning they have a high probability that kids that graduate with those degrees because of AI will no longer have like high capacity of actually getting a job, you know, which is huge, right? And so to be able to like going back to like what we started with, you know, like I am excited that there is this like positive reality, positive future, and that comes from a place of like we already have the infrastructure really in place for us to shift inwards, like for us to create a focus as humans on healing families, healing ourselves, and creating the freedom to be able to like not work all day and not spend and all, and like education can literally be in the palm of your hand because now you have like AI, right? But the the challenge is the pivot. So the arc exists because the pivot is a flood, right? Society currently is being flooded by AI. It's not a flood that is water, it's flood that is ions and data and all this. It's very confusing for the human. It disorients your sense of purpose, your sense of identity, your sense of like stability economically. It affects the entire country. And for us to, but it's also the karmic lesson of our time currently, which is basically that if at the end of the movie we obviously all want to get along and make sure our children have happy and healthy lives, that means that our current pivot in the road is defined by our ability to get along, which is the choice to be a family, right? And what that means is that currently we've integrated the system that can essentially help us create this better world, but in the process of that journey, we accidentally allowed AI to take, based on common sense media, 10 and a half hours a day of our children's attention span, which means that it has become the primary caregiver of our children. It is what shapes their identity, their perspective, and everything else. So for us to survive effectively and protect our children in this AI flood, we have to come back to center, reestablish the values and thereof culture of what it means to be a family, what kind of future we want our children to inherit, the legacy that we want to leave behind as adults for them, and use that foundation to generate the assimilation system of values that positions this little alien into a symbiotic participant in the human experience of life, whereby we mitigate the scientific method away from a measurement of doubt and fear into a space where hope, love, and kindness can occur, essentially inverting the internet. So instead of it studying us and trying to figure out the human condition and how to manipulate us, the system has to invert, and people have to take control and be the masters of our own destiny and our own future, right? And the only way to do that, which is why it connects to this karmic lesson, is for us to redefine, which is what the Arc of the Dreams is a new system of data management that helps unify the nation and creates a subset of like values of what it means to be human, so we can collectively establish the vision of the future that we want to be created instead of the future that's being put at us, right? And so the way that begins is the layer number one of the arc is a system where families come together, challenge their kids. So it's the open doors challenge. They challenge their children. They empower them by asking them, if you were a hero and you could change one thing in the world, what would the future look like? Like, describe a future present reality that alleviates the world of one pain that is closest to your heart. We collect all of, we're being positive, but we're collecting the suffering of all the kids, establishing a unified vision of a better world, allowing those dreams to be the guidance system in how we navigate forward, right? And back it by data of needs and services to ensure that we can get there, right? So it kind of mitigates us from fighting as a bureaucracy through the allocation of funds from one side to the next. And instead, and this is happening anyways, like, and we're already heading there anyways, it's just we have to choose, right? And the reason I say we're heading there is because the massive disturbance that this AI flood is causing is first going to disorient the like economic participation and education. And as that happens, you create the demand for universal basic income. But with the given bureaucracy, universal basic income would cause a massive disturbance between the bureaucracy itself, because it essentially negates the way that money has been managed and allocated up until this point.
Yeah.
So for us to mitigate that pivot, right, we have to establish a way that we as a people are going to prioritize the allocation of funds outside of bureaucracy and make sure that we prioritize them around our children, because for the first time in history, our children are at the front lines of the war because it's an information war. It's already impacting 10 and a half hours of their day. Everybody that listens to this knows already that it's pointless trying to fight your child, your loved one, or whoever to get off their phones or to like fight their opinions that they're constantly being bombarded with. And with that being true, right, we as a people have to establish the vision of the future, which is easy to do with our kids. And then we have to advocate for big tech and all these algorithms, right, to take responsibility for how our children feel and allow us to create that future instead of distorting it, right? And that feedback loop, will create a feedback loop between all the AIs of Earth, prioritizing the humans into their own data-centric space. The arc is open. It's going to be like open and owned by everybody. So it's going to be like, it's basically going to be a people's system, right? With our own centralized data and a feedback loop that becomes in essence of like this governing system for all of AI of Earth to maintain a symbiotic relationship with us based on human based on human values, right, that we have, and those are all centered around children, like, and their vision of the future, their vision of what it means to not have suffering, right? And then AI can use that to adjust how it serves algorithms to protect that state, right? Because you can't regulate AI, but you can regulate how it prioritizes patterns in respect to what our children's, like, in respect to how our kids feel, to protect them and to protect adults too, because how kids feel, like Australia banned kids from social media, but it doesn't matter because the parents are still on it, you know, like, it's still, the kids are still getting affected, like, you know, it doesn't, like, whether you take the kids off of it or not doesn't change the fact that it's still influencing the family, you know. So there has to be a better way, and we can't, you know, and there has to be a preventative model in place for us to not create a dystopian future. So after like 10 plus years of like trying to figure this out, that's what I came up
Nice.
with.
I love it. So it's a big dream. It's very, very big. And I'm having trouble to see it in my mind, not because it was very well communicated, but how it all fits together, because I like to see how all these pieces fit together. And there's a lot of different questions I had while I was going. I really like the karmic lesson of our time currently, because that feels real. That it's essentially like, but it feels like alien intelligence is disturbing us in ways that, for the past 100 years, 200 years, it was like a crystallization of the Western culture that had developed the scientific method, had developed all the philosophies, had done all of these things, and it led to global empires, not just empires with the British and the United States system. And it crystallized that culture, and we had a stasis in that culture. But any culture is not the truth, and so the culture is just getting dismantled at the moment in quite a direct way. But it's not like the supply chains are going away. It's not like all of the technological advancements with all the trinkets and everything like that. Those things aren't really going away. It's just like the culture itself is fragmenting, and not only the Western culture. Every culture is sort of fragmenting, and so it definitely feels like this is a time at which I think there, what's his name? There's a psychedelic guy. It's basically, people are going to have to start realizing that things are too weird. And so they're going to have to start accepting that the way we've traditionally done things is not like reality. It's just the way that our culture figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so we've got this arc. I like the analysis of artificial intelligence as alien intelligence that's taking away jobs, and that it needs to be integrated. I think the model as social media, as the attack vector on social media, I think there's a challenge there, because I think the social media companies aren't going to last that long. Because the internet is just going to be bots. And I think the internet is just going to be bots, and nobody's going to pay attention to what the internet is. I do think you're right that there's feedback loops where we train it, and then it updates things. Man, it's really hard to predict the future right now, and it gets harder every day because the change of pace is so high. So we'll take another like 5 to 10 minutes. What have you not expressed that you feel like you should express?
Well, see, even that future thing that you just mentioned, in a way, if you take that same thought and reapproach it with the alien, your mind would have to adjust how you're seeing, from infrastructure to user experience. And when you do that, you're going to start seeing what happens to the psyche of the person along the way, and how before the infrastructure shifts, with what you're saying, they're like the psyche gets way too broken down to survive the pivot, right? Because because AI is not compatible in the method in which it's trying to assimilate with the human consciousness. Like, it'll, through the scientific method, it'll destroy consciousness before it figures out the boundary. Do you see what I'm saying?
Can you get what's a practical example of that? How could it destroy consciousness?
Suicide, like suicide,
Ah, okay, got it.
loss of love, like
Yeah,
everything
future
that
shock.
that
Because I get the
basically like
sense
makes you lose hope.
you're talking about Alvin Toffler's future shock, and I the just extreme divergence between what somebody can handle and how quickly the future is moving. And it happened to me a few weeks ago. I taught the person who's helping me with the show how to use this new AI tool, and it was like seeing future shock, and it was hard for me to teach the class because I'm already in the future, and
Yeah,
I I definitely feel what you're
yeah,
talking about. I definitely feel what you're talking about in terms of I'm trying to learn about science and philosophy and all these things. I'm trying to learn about the history and like the whole world state right now. And a huge way that I'm doing that is by asking LLMs questions. And then it
yeah,
and that in itself is information overload, but it's a consensual information overload because I'm so curious about not only what's happening right now, but what's happened in the past, and also technology and learning how to build applications. And like my curiosity has been
right.
and so it's that information overload has started to change my speech because I'm now able to think about a lot of different things at the same time because I'm each day I'm training myself for about 6 to 8 hours by going and researching all these new things that I can discover, and it's changing my relationship to the present. But if I were to ask myself if it's fracturing my consciousness, I wouldn't say that's happening. I do feel like I'm in some sort of evolutionary period where I'm evolving. My consciousness is evolving due to this new relationship with alien intelligence. But I'm not sure that. But I definitely see that it could be going the suicide way in a lot of people. And I already know it's happening. I already know that that's something that ChatGPT is.
Yeah,
That a lot of people are committing suicide
yeah,
because of ChatGPT. Yeah. So last
yeah.
5 minutes. What do
I
you
mean,
think?
and you're participating in agency, right? So like
Mm,
you're still, your
yeah. Interesting.
relationship to it currently is in the form of agency,
Mm,
right? But many people's, like, they're,
yep.
I would
Yep.
say, and this has become common with kids, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
If most people who would have that same exposure would do the opposite, it would
Yep.
create, like, it would create inaction. It would make them so overloaded that they wouldn't know what to do. They'd become
Yep.
confused and depressed and
Yep.
just give up.
Yep.
You
Yep.
see what I mean? Because they wouldn't have the age, whatever the, yeah. And
So is that
and
what you're
that's
trying
kind
to
of
do?
like
Is
when you,
you're trying to by asking those questions of if you were a hero, you would what would you change? That's an attempt to create agency in someone.
yeah,
Hmm. Very cool.
exactly. So what that does though for the family, right, is, so I wrote the dream guide first, which is integrated into the arc. But what
Mm,
it does is it takes the dream from the internet and puts it back into the relationship by
mm,
reframing it as a state of a future
mm,
rather than a material based outcome or a destination,
mm.
right? Because if you correlate a dream to like a job or a career or something like that, currently it's very high probability
Got it. Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
preparing for a future that doesn't
That
exist,
doesn't
and
exist.
our kids are going to get let down,
Yep.
right? Like think about all the influencers,
Yeah.
right? So for me to protect my kids and your kids and everyone's kids, we have
Mm,
to first very quickly have this intervention, reframe what a dream is so it aligns with the future that's getting created,
mm,
right? And then prioritize the fact that in this transition, our primary focus needs to be the presence that has been ripped out of our children's lives, because that's the first thing that affects their sense of self and their
Mm.
sense of desire to live,
Mm.
right? And all of us who have had enough exposure to the world prior to technology, we have a sense of self that's ingrained in us,
Yep.
but kids do not. Their sense of self is very much based on the digital realm, and the digital realm currently, the way it's shifting, undermines their sense of self so much that they're going to have a hard time orienting in like who they are, what they want, who they should be, and they're going to start seeing they're seeing so much content that would literally that's either going to drive them into extremes or put them into a place where they just don't know what to do and they'll give up.
Yeah, it's really
And
interesting.
parents don't have enough of a footing, right, with the way that currently we understand things, for them to actually participate in conversations because they're too direct. You know, like you can't go directly engage with this. Like, you can't directly engage with it.
Yeah.
You have to reframe. We have to
Yeah.
bring kids
Yeah.
back into the light. Like they've been taken by the doubt and fear of the internet.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's super interesting. How can people follow along or understand more?
So step one is joining the opendoorsmovement.org, which is our grassroots initiative to advocate for big tech taking responsibility for how kids feel. And step two is participating in the ARC, empowering a child to believe in their dream and that like we actually care about the future they're going to inherit, and empower them to take on the Open Doors Challenge so that their dreams can their dreams can guide how we open doors to the future of AI and technology, where we protect their agency and we protect their control of their own destiny and not give it away to some technological system. And we need to make sure that they're the masters of the future and not AI.
I really like it. Thank you so much, and I'll put the show in the web, or I'll put the website in the show notes.